Coming up, Big Ten Football Championship weekend is here. Wisconsin and Ohio State fans bringing a sea of red to downtown Indianapolis and the color of green for hotels, bars, and restaurants who are cashing in. Indiana Sports Corporation President Ryan Vaughn is here to explain the economic impact and if the game will stay in Indy.
I think we're at the precipice of something really exciting.
Plus, it is a Hoosier homegrown success story. We take you inside the Heritage Group on the northwest side of Indianapolis. President Amy Schumacher discusses the center and innovation initiatives aimed at moving the company and Indiana forward. And Cluster Truck is on a roll, and it says a new partnership with Kroger can disrupt the third-party delivery service market and fix the so-called broken models from Grubhub and DoorDash. Co-founder Chris Baggett here with details. And we'll have details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. For the 9th year, Indianapolis is this weekend hosting the Big Ten Football Championship. But can Indy keep the big game? This weekend's matchup between Ohio State and Wisconsin expected to generate an economic impact of more than $19.5 million. Also add to Indy's reputation as a world-class host for big-time sporting events. With more on the impact and the future of the Big Ten Football Championship in Indianapolis, pleased to be joined by Indiana Sports Corporation President Ryan Vaughn. Ryan, as always, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. We want to talk about the impact in a minute. But first of all, the future of this. Indianapolis has been the one and only host since 2011 of the Big Ten Football Championship. We have the game through 2021. What next? Negotiations to begin fairly soon?
Yeah, so the new commissioner, Governor Warner of the Big Ten, has indicated that the competitive bid process will probably kick off at the beginning of the year, sometime in February. We know several other cities are very interested in hosting this game. It's a special opportunity for any city. We've certainly enjoyed it for the past several years.
Your expectation on those other cities who you think will be in the mix?
Yeah, they're probably going to want to continue to be in an indoor stadium in Midwest countries. So certainly Detroit and Minneapolis will be, we know for a fact, enthusiastic about bidding on this opportunity. But we don't take it for granted. We intend to compete very hard and hope to keep it here permanently.
From a competitive standpoint, Indianapolis certainly with its amateur and professional sports mantra, the leadership position, but these other markets want it. What are going to be some of the keys you think to keeping the Big Ten Football Championship here in Indianapolis?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, around the Midwest, really around the country, people have seen how impactful sports can be for their community, and they've really kind of built their models off of our model. They're putting their stadiums closer to downtown. They're renovating. But we continue to be very competitive. What the community partnership brings to the table is strong. And one of the things that we do better than most any other community that I know of is that we work together. So, it's not just the sports corp bringing the Big Ten relationship here. It's the Colts, it's the Pacers, it's the CIB, it's Visit Indy, it's us, the city and the state. And that's our strongest partnership.
Big Ten Football Championship also brings economic impact, pegged at about $19.5 million. Ryan, talk about that impact and how it plays out, not to mention the exposure on Fox Sports and otherwise for this big Wisconsin-Ohio State matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you think about 19.5 annually and the opportunity to host this for at least a decade, over $200 million in economic impact. Hotels are all but sold out. It's actually the largest Airbnb weekend of the year, every year. So restaurants are full. And it's also a great opportunity to put Indy on a global stage media-wise in a very positive light. So it's a very special opportunity and one we don't take for granted.
As you look again at negotiating for future Big Ten football championships, that will come at a time, I think, from the Big Ten standpoint, of some other big negotiations, too, around men's and women's basketball.
Yeah, typically they've sort of put all of those out to competitive bid at the same time. Our men's basketball relationship, we're hosting again this year in 2020, and then again in 2022, and we've been fortunate to host the women's event 24 out of the 25 years it's been in existence. So we'll continue to compete for those and look for events through 27 going forward.
And when it comes to basketball, the East Coast competition too, obviously, New York and some other markets.
You know, as the Big Ten has expanded geographically, they've felt an obligation to introduce those sports to New York and D.C., but again, it's basketball and we're Indiana, so I feel pretty good about our chances to be successful.
Absolutely. As we wrap up, after the 2021, that really begins a really busy stretch for Indianapolis and the Sports Corporation. You've got a men's Final Four. You've got then ultimately after that the college football championship game.
Yeah, we're blessed. NBA All-Star Game, men's Final Four, college football championship, more Big Ten action on each side of that. We're going to need a ton of volunteers and for the community to really engage. And so love it if folks would visit our website at indianasportscorp.org and sign up to be a part of it.
All right. Ryan Vaughn, the president of the Indiana Sports Corporation. Big weekend in Indianapolis and lots of big weekends in the months and years ahead as well. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, also this week, Indianapolis-based Eli Lilly and Company has opened its first shared innovation lab in San Francisco. The 65,000 square foot Lilly Gateway Labs will offer companies direct access to Lilly scientists and executives, as well as exposure to Lilly's scientific expertise. The lab also serves to strengthen the relationship Lilly has with California-based medical and biotech companies. And coming up next, the rapidly growing business of podcasts.
Hey guys, it's Fabian, and you are listening to another episode of the Drink Culture Podcast, a show about the business owners, thought leaders, and creators who have helped make Indianapolis what it is today.
Indianapolis entrepreneur Fabian Rodriguez from Drink Culture Podcast is here to explain what prompted the idea of mixing storytelling with drinks and how his company is carving out a unique niche. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegiant, pioneering safety. Well, podcasting with roots that date back to the 1980s really began to gain traction about 15 years ago. And here in Indianapolis, Drink Culture Podcast has grown from just talking about beer and whiskey drinks to interviewing experts in a wide range of industries. Today, Drink Culture Podcast proclaims to be the official podcast of Indianapolis, and co-founder and CEO Fabian Rodriguez is here to explain his new growth and his new podcast and the economic impact as well of podcasts. Fabian, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And
Gary.
Congratulations, too, on the success of the podcast, which is really about, as we were talking off camera, being a place-based podcast. What's that all about?
Yeah, so we kind of had been working with somebody that pitched this term to us as place-based podcasting. We really never thought of ourselves in that way. So we've always been hyper-local, but never thought about anything beyond that. And when she put it in those terms, it really resonated with us, made a lot of sense. So it's just about engaging and inspiring people within your own community to go out there and explore everything that we have to offer. So
your podcast has really evolved, because I think you started in 2017, texted your co-founder, say, hey, you want to start a podcast about bourbons and drinks? It evolved from that, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. So Jared Beisko is our other co-founder, and I just sent him a text message. I was really bored at work, just didn't like what I was doing there, and I needed something to scratch that creative itch. I sent him a text and literally just said, do you want to start a podcast? And he said yes. Didn't know what it was going to be about, but he was really big into bourbon at the time. I was really into beer, and we thought, hey, maybe we could do something around that. And maybe 4 or 5 episodes in, we realized that we didn't know nearly enough to sustain an ongoing podcast, so we kind of had to pivot.
Yeah.
From there.
Well, talk about how you have evolved, and I was fortunate and honored to be on the podcast for one of the episodes, but talk about what the podcast really, you mentioned place-based podcast, but what it's all about now.
So really, if you're a podcast listener, 2 of the most popular podcasts out there, Joe Rogan Experience and How I Built This, and we really wanted to take an approach that combined those 2 worlds. So we're taking a look at the people that have helped build Indianapolis to what it is today. So we interview business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, cool people that are doing just cool things around the city, and we try to highlight them in this long-form conversation. Yeah.
Podcast, the growth trajectory for podcast is really pretty substantial, and you recently quit your day job, if you will. You're full-time now at this, right?
Full-time podcasting, literally 24/7. I'm doing it all the time, but yeah, it's a huge market. And, this is kind of having the boom that blogging did at one point where everybody feels like they have to do it. And if you don't, you're missing out. But it's blown up.
As you look at the potential, what do you see as the future? What's next for the podcast?
So we've always had this grand vision to take it somewhere else, right? We think that we can brand this as something that we can place into other cities. And what we've seen over the last 2.5 years is that we are having some economic impact. We are having a lot more engagement with citizens in our community to really start to make a difference. And we think that it's unique enough that we can, take our process and how we've been able to build it into places like a Cincinnati or Louisville, Kentucky, something like that.
So you see some scale to this, and obviously you feel podcasts are here to stay.
1,000%, yes.
Very good. Good answer.
Yeah.
Fabian Rodriguez is co-founder and CEO of Drink Culture Podcast, an Indianapolis-based podcast that has continued to grow and has a lot of growth opportunity going forward. Fabian, as always, thanks for being on. We'll look forward to having you on again.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, still ahead, Kroger, an Indianapolis-based cluster truck. They're joining forces in a partnership they say will redefine the future of meal delivery with a key demographic in mind, suburban consumers. More on the new service and its potential economic impact. But next...
We operate on 3 continents, employ over 5,000 people. Many of our headquarters are here in the great state of Indiana.
The Heritage Group, it is an amazing Indiana business success story you may not have heard about. We talk with President Amy Schumacher to learn more about the company's nearly 100-year tradition of innovation and science and plans to help position Indiana as a global innovation leader. Well, this week we take you inside an Indiana homegrown success story that a lot of people really don't know about. Indianapolis-based Heritage Group, a nearly 100-year-old company that now has more than 5,000 employees and 30 operating companies, built on a commitment to science and innovation. The reach of this family-owned company extends around the globe, as does its commitment to innovation. Great example, a few years ago, the Heritage Group opened the Center on the city's northwest side. In part 1 of a series, we take you inside the center and talk with President Amy Schumacher about the role the company is playing in accelerating innovation in Indiana. I want to begin by, if you could just kind of give us a thumbnail about this facility, which is, it's cool space, but it really is remarkable. Talk about it.
Yeah, so we're meeting today at the center here in Indianapolis. We opened a couple years ago. And the center is, it really is a hub for the Heritage Group where we focus on innovation, collaboration, ultimately research. It was designed and built to really embody the culture of the Heritage Group, a culture that's been built on innovation and entrepreneurship for almost 100 years.
Yeah. Well, as you talk about that culture, as you walk around this facility, I've heard people say, if you would just drop down in this facility, you think you may be in Silicon Valley or some really a mecca of innovation. That was maybe part of the idea, to create space that, as you say, really does embody the culture of the company.
Yeah, I mean, this is like nothing we've ever done before. But it also had to be very authentic to who we are and what we're all about. And so I think when you walk in the door, you get the essence of not only the Heritage Group, but the family that sits behind it. When we designed the building, we really focused on, what do we think over the last almost 100 years has been our secret sauce. And then we tried to create a very intentional environment to recreate that, not only for today, but into the future for all the folks that want to join our organization.
As you talk about that history of the Heritage Group, it is truly an Indiana success story. For those people who may not be familiar with the Heritage Group, give us, be tough to encapsulate it in a brief amount of time, but the highlights. Talk about the history of the Heritage Group and what that's been all about.
Yeah, so the Heritage Group, we've been here for almost a century. We're celebrating our 90th year in 2020. It is a multi-generation, privately held, family-owned business. We operate on 3 continents, employ over 5,000 people. Many of our headquarters are here in the great state of Indiana. The foundation of our business is really around materials science, things that have to do with materials science. We have many business interests, but they can generally be organized around construction and materials, environmental services or sustainability, and specialty chemicals.
Innovation is a big part of the success of the company, certainly. And as I look at it, it seems that you want the Heritage Group to play a big role in innovation and entrepreneurship and growing companies in Indiana. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I mean, we're at our core are, I would call us builders of businesses. We've obviously anchored, our roots go very deep here to Indiana and Indianapolis in particular, but we're doing that all over the world. So it really is where does the opportunity present itself, where the demand and the opportunity may meet.
Yeah. We'll talk about that and new ventures and the focus here on innovation and how that's playing out.
Yeah, so we started our new ventures organization about 2 years ago, and really did so with the following in mind. It's to create intentional entrepreneurial connections across the Heritage Group. That's the way I might put it. So within our core businesses, New Ventures brings exposure to new markets, to new business models, to new technologies, to new opportunities. And so it keeps them continuing to move forward, keeps them current, relevant, and forward thinking. New Ventures is a partner to our Heritage Research Group, which is here in this facility. And the way I look at it is it's brought a more structured approach to commercialization as we think about accelerating new business, accelerating innovation across the system. And so New Ventures in the Research Group, it helps leverage and extend the scale and impact that the Research Group can have. And then finally for New Ventures, we're investing in early stage companies. We're betting on entrepreneurs. And so in today's world with capital as a commodity, I think of the Heritage Group and the experience and the expertise that we have. And we are a differentiated investor. We bring value to the entrepreneurs that we partner with. And in doing so, the goal is to create real value.
Do you anticipate that these things can also benefit the state of Indiana and benefit the growth of innovation and entrepreneurship in the state?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously New Ventures contributes to the Heritage Group in multiple fronts. The goal is to have it contribute to Indiana and to the region as a whole. We have an accelerator, which we have 10 businesses from across the world here, and one Indiana company is represented in that crew as well. So absolutely.
That was the Heritage Group President, Amy Schumacher. Well, this week, the Heritage Group Accelerator, powered by Techstars, which was just mentioned in that report, hosted a high-profile demo day pitch event. The founders of Techstars Class number 188 shared the innovative products and services they are building for the future of advanced materials, infrastructure, and sustainability. Now, those startups who've been housed here in Indianapolis at the Heritage Group come from 5 U.S. states, including Indiana, and also Canada, Estonia, and Germany. The goal of Demo Day for those startups to share ideas to an audience of venture capitalists, corporate leaders, industry experts to raise additional capital. We'll have more in part 2 of our series next week when we go inside the Techstars Accelerator and how it is positioning Indiana on a global stage. Coming up next, Kroger and Cluster Truck are teaming up, they say, to revolutionize home meal delivery. Cluster Truck co-founder Chris Baggett is here with details on the partnership, how it will work. There he is in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, Cluster Truck was founded in Indianapolis in 2015, and this week announced a major partnership with Kroger, America's largest supermarket retailer, the software-driven food delivery company and grocery chain, partnering to create specialized delivery kitchens and address what they call the shortcomings of the third-party food delivery industry. I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Cluster Truck co-founder and CEO Chris Baggett with more on the partnership and some big plans for this new alliance. Chris, as always, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Really
I can remember having you on a few years ago. We talked about this whole idea for Cluster Truck. It has grown in many ways. Give us the thumbnail for those who may not know of what Cluster Truck is all about.
Sure. So basically, we're a vertically integrated prepared food delivery company. We're software first, so we developed a software platform that continues to develop using machine learning to efficiently manage our own driver fleet and deliver food of high quality quickly.
And you have a focus, as we were talking off camera, on the driver.
Exactly.
On the driver. And that's been key to, I think, your success.
It has. When we started and we're first scoping this out in 2015, one of our first premises was, let's take the worst job in the gig economy and make it the best job. So our core constituent is really the delivery people before the customer. And if we have decisions to make, often we will make them to favor the driver over the customer.
You are an innovator, a disruptor in many ways. Past experience with ExactTarget, and one of the key guys in the Indiana tech industry. Talk about this partnership with Kroger and how that's going to evolve.
It's really exciting. You know, one of the pain points of our business is actually having to physically build kitchens, and it takes a long time. It's construction. On the Kroger side, groceries are being disrupted, and how do the customers want to eat? Well, they want their food cooked for them and brought to them. It's natural for Kroger to want to do that, and we have the only model on earth that we know of that actually works in a vertically integrated and profitable way.
And you view the model at companies like Grubhub. You think that's a broken model. Why so?
It's too many third parties. There's too many pieces to the puzzle. It's impossible to coordinate. We think about it in terms of time, right? How do we shave minutes, seconds? And if you don't control the whole process, you can never control time.
Yeah. How's this going to roll out? This is a pilot in a number of markets, right, here in central Indiana and beyond.
Right. We launched Monday in Denver, Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, and we have a joint kitchen we opened together in Carmel, which is our first suburban kitchen. So we're very interested to see how that goes.
Expectations? What are the expectations here as you launch this initiative?
Well, we expect it to be very successful. We're really, really excited. Kroger has so far turned out to be just a terrific partner. They're open-minded. They have a mindset of disrupting themselves. So we have a great team we're working with, and we think it's going to be wildly successful.
I mentioned disruptive in the beginning. I know we've had conversations before about your thoughts for really changing that home food delivery industry, if you will, and really revolutionizing. Is that an overstatement?
No, I think it's the trend, and people want to do this. If you look at the industry, it is booming. But if you look at the customer experience and look at reviews, the customer's not happy, but they're still doing it. And it's like, that's catnip to an entrepreneur, right? Okay, if I can make them happy in this rapidly growing industry, and the data say we're making people happy.
Yeah. Interesting alliance. Chris Baggett's the co-founder and CEO of Cluster Truck and Kroger coming together in a partnership that we'll be following in the months and years ahead. Chris, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Well, coming up, a former Colts quarterback. He's getting in on the game of high-tech health to help firefighters.
2, 1, go.
Super Bowl champion Jim Sorgi is in studio to explain how his Indiana-based company is going high-tech to prevent injuries to firefighters. Also ahead, they're called maker spaces, spaces where students gather to create, invent, and learn to build their STEM skills. And Indiana-based First Maker Space is a leader in this unique educational approach. What it could mean for workforce development and entrepreneurship, that's in our Eye on Education segment. Well, a young Indianapolis company believes it can help prevent injuries among firefighters by treating them like professional athletes. And a familiar name in Hoosier sports is leading that charge. Former Indianapolis Colts quarterback Jim Sorgi. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more. Kylie.
Thank you very much, Gary. The National Fire Protection Association recorded more than 58,000 injuries last year among firefighters in the line of duty. Pro Team Tactical Performance is using a new technology in Indiana it says could help stop these injuries before they happen. Here to tell us more is Jim Sorgi, the co-owner of Pro Team Tactical. Thanks for coming to the show today, Jim.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So before we talk about your technology, let's
ma'am.
talk about your company and its philosophy to treat firefighters, police officers, other first responders like professional athletes. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, my background is in professional football, 6 years with the Colts, 1 year with the Giants. My partner, Joey Vandiver, his background is in Major League Baseball. And one thing we feel like worked really well with public safety is the way athletics take care of injuries from a point of injury to back to the playing field. We feel like, the way athletes, get in the training room, the way they are seen by doctors, how they're handled by doctors, just speeds up the recovery. And it just, if it's given to high-level athletes, why not public safety? Why not firefighters, EMS, police officers, the people that take care of us on a daily basis?
So your philosophy, kind of extending that to public service officers. So tell us about this new technology that you're using, Dari Motion. Explain what it is.
So Dari Motion, it's a markerless, FDA-approved medical device. And what it does is it assesses movement. You assess your movement and we're able to find deficiencies, we're able to get a bunch of data, and with that data we can kind of analyze where we have deficiencies throughout the body. Where we can find those deficiencies, we can predict injuries and sometimes be able to prevent injuries from occurring. And that's what's so special about this Dari Motion. The technology is it's markerless. It's basically just puts a skeleton on the human body and able to dictate motion and movement within 1 millimeter of accuracy. So it's nice to have this, which is normally provided to high-level athletes, given to public safety, because their movements, their skill sets, and what they do for work is very similar to the movements of an athlete.
It's fascinating. We're showing some video of it. Whitestown Fire Department, the first public safety department in Indiana to use it. So it focuses on this motion assessment. Tell us just quickly what that motion assessment is like, and then how you create a plan from that assessment.
Well, it's a bunch of movements. I mean, from range of motion to twisting to moving to jumping, and we're able to see the output, the force that the body is using. If there's deficiencies, if there's we're kind of having a little imbalance somewhere, and we're able to take that data, we're able to give these public safety officers, these men and women that go out there and risk their lives, correctives to improve that imbalance and not only help them get to the job healthy and ready to go if needed and called upon, but also when they retire to help them live without pain so they can enjoy retirement.
And Notre Dame Athletics also using it,
Yes, ma'am.
Baltimore Ravens. So your company focuses on rehab, but this Dari Motion really gets in front of the problem. It's more about prevention, right?
Yes, Dari is about prevention. Pro Team Tactical at first was a company about rehab. It was about getting the point of injury to getting these men and women back to work and treating these men and women just like athletes from an injury to back to work. Dari Motion is more of a prevention to that. We can predict, we can prevent, but if we can make these men and women good movers, if they do get injured, we can rehab them and get them better even quicker.
And interesting too, the technology is portable, so you
Yes,
can
ma'am.
take it places. Explain sort of what you have planned for the future as far as taking it other places outside of Whitestown.
Yes, we plan on servicing all fire departments, all EMS, all police departments throughout the state of Indiana. That was great about Whitestown is they're very proactive in their approach with injuries. We were able to take it right to the firehouse and assess their people right there. So it is portable, which it's a 5-7 minute assessments. It's relatively quick and we can get the results on the spot, and then we analyze that data, we come up with the correctives, we talk to them about what's going on, we give them the correctives, and then put them on the path of becoming a better mover.
Your company is just 1 year old, but you're seeing some growth, a couple new locations in the works.
Yes, the first location, we do a lot of work with the Indianapolis Fire Department in the city of Indianapolis, but our first standalone location will be in Grant Park at the Pacers Athletic Center, and we'll service a lot of the outlying townships, outlying counties at that facility, but with hopes of creating other facilities down the road.
All right, very good. Well, good luck with the new technology.
Thank you
Thanks for
very
coming
much.
to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, first Makerspace as a new president and CEO. Mary Reinhardt previously served as education director of the organization and really helped transform the business to focus on education and community-based makerspaces and STEM labs. In our Eye on Education segment this week, Mary and co-founder Kim Brand explain how First Makerspace is helping districts implement STEM and computer science solutions around the state. And welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I think First Makerspace, coming up on 5 years, is a fascinating story. Kim, you co-founded the First Makerspace. Give us the thumbnail description and what it's all about.
We started in the industrial additive manufacturing business. My impulsive and wealthy co-founder decided we ought to make 3D printers. I thought we'd make a few. We made a few hundred. And what became of that were, I believe, successful 3D design and printing summer camps. It introduced me to the whole education business. And although I had, 3 kids who went through school, they seemed to do okay. What I wasn't prepared for was the enthusiasm for learning that young kids have when you get their hands involved. So these 3D printing design summer camps attracted 1,000 kids, and the results led me to doing what we're doing today.
And these maker spaces in schools, harkens back to the time when there were shop classes that have largely gone away. Now this is enabling that connection, that alignment between workforce needs and people who can make and do things.
That's right. What every employer wants is somebody who shows up, is enthusiastic for their work, plays nice with the people they're working with, and thinks about how to improve the process at their employer. A makerspace gives kids that early experience with tinkering, with failing forward, experimenting. And as Mary said, entrepreneurship is a core part of it, because these kids we're talking to, their best employer of the future may be themselves.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mary has mentioned you have been with the organization for a couple of years, but just within the last week, elevated to CEO and president of the organization. As you look at opportunities, where do you see those real opportunities?
So, across the state, we're really seeing a demand for maker spaces and everywhere from kindergarten through high school and even in universities. I think clients in the education space and principals, parents are hungry for spaces that can help their students develop into future innovators and really be the next generation of problem solvers. And maker spaces do that, whether it's through problem solving kits and microbits or through 3D printers and laser cutters. The tool isn't as important as the methods that are used to deploy those tools, and through professional development and the curriculum that we've developed, I think we've got a really great path moving forward for educators.
Really starting at young ages too.
Yeah.
As we were talking off camera, you talked about kind of a transformation of the proposal process. What's that all about?
Yeah, so when we walk, when we're invited into a school, we help them come up with a plan for their makerspace. It can be really overwhelming to develop a plan. You have to think about where the furniture is going to go, where you're going to put your equipment, the tech needs, and then there's also curriculum and professional development. We put all of that into a single plan, and then we help you write grants to fundraise your way through the process as well. And we create a 3D model for free. And so we're really client-centric. We work with educators and parents to make sure that we're putting students first.
Yeah, Kim, as you look at it, I mean, it would seem to me there's so much focus on workforce and aligning, education with workforce needs. This gets at the heart of what we hear all the time from employers, the kinds of people we can't find enough of.
That's right.
Do you see school systems and schools beginning to really kind of the light bulb going off?
I think the best schools are. I think they're innovative as they've always been. Educators are the hardest working folks I know. They're to a person focused on the positive outcomes that they can have in a child's life. A makerspace and other forms of creative, inspiring activities that educators have deployed are really the way that Indiana moves forward. This is an investment in the future.
Yeah. First Makerspace just coming up on 5 years old now. Kim Reinhart, brand new president and CEO. Kim Brand, the co-founder as well. Thank
Mary,
you.
yeah.
I said, what did I say? I didn't say Kim. Okay. Mary Reinhart, Kim Brand. Thank you both. Good luck. We'll look forward to having you on the show again.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
And a reminder, all of our Eye on Education segments can be found at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. And if you have an interesting story idea, please send it to lead producer Tara Twig at ttwig@growindiana.net. Well, this week, the Indianapolis-based parent of St. Elmo's Steakhouse, Harry and Izzy's and Burger Study, celebrating the opening of its 1933 Lounge by St. Elmo concept at the Yard at Fishers District. Hughes Culinary says it is the first of 2 establishments it will manage at the $110 million Culinary and Entertainment Hub. The 5,000 square foot location is the second 1933 Lounge location, the original located above St. Elmo's Steakhouse downtown. The 1933 Lounge will be joined early next year by another Hughes Culinary brand, the family-friendly HC Tavern and Kitchen. Still ahead, our special edition of The Insiders. A panel from AgriNovus Indiana will weigh in on how the move to foster more entrepreneurs in Indiana in the ag bioscience space is gaining traction. But first, online help for basketball referees looking to call better games and quiet the boo birds. It's the brainchild of Indianapolis official Bo Borowski, and he's here to explain how it works. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Well, Amish Acres in Napanee, a well-known tourist destination in northern Indiana's Amish country, is going on the auction block in February. The owners of the Elkhart County attraction announced last month they were closing the 50-year-old business. Columbia City-based Schrader Real Estate, an auction company, says that auction scheduled for February 5 of next year. A subsidiary of Ohio-based Smith Foods is planning to expand its operations in Richmond. Smith Foods Richmond, Inc. plans to invest $9 million to add a new production line and create nearly 35 jobs over 3 years. The company says the effort will increase the plant's capacity to produce dairy and non-dairy products with extended shelf life, and that the new full-time jobs will pay on average about $22 an hour. In Whiting, a lack of parking has halted plans for a 68-unit mixed-use development. Our partners at the Times of Northwest Indiana report Mayor Joe Stahura scrapped the project just before it was set to break ground. Stahura says the city is currently considering alternative options, and officials say a parking garage could be one solution. The mayor says the master plan for the Stadium District should be in place by Christmas, including plans for a hotel. Well, during the college basketball season, it seems hardly a night goes by when you don't see this Indianapolis resident officiating a major college basketball game. But he's also working behind the scenes to help younger referees. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Gary, thanks. Well, he's risen through the ranks to the top echelon of officiating, including being assigned to work his first NCAA men's Final Four last spring. But Bo Borowski wants to help these striped shirts at other levels of basketball as well, and he's developed an online tool called RefQuest to do just that. And we welcome Bo to the program, fitting this into your very, very busy schedule. The guy, he works nearly 100 Division I games a year, been doing that for 19 years, and an incredible resume. But let's talk about RefQuest, your 3rd year in existence for this online tool, and what's the concept behind it, Bo?
Well, the bottom line to it is we felt there was a better way to teach and train officials. And we just wanted a way to provide a platform for collaboration. So we connect supervisors with officials, officials with each other, and officials back with their supervisor, all done privately and customizably.
And they can go online, you video clips, and you can analyze plays and calls and all sorts of tools. Right?
Yeah, it's all video clip based. So as a supervisor of a small college league here in Indiana, I can send one official, an entire crew of 3, or the entire staff, and get feedback and communication with them.
And an important thing, as we mentioned in the open, this is, again, for referees really at all levels, not just Division I where you work, but at all levels.
Sure. We just signed an agreement with the IHSAA, so we're dealing with the high schools, and we've got 5 different states throughout the country, and we're in 80 different collegiate conferences throughout the country.
And the IHSA, this is breaking news pretty much, because you just came to this agreement. And how many officials do they have?
It's 3,380 officials that we just uploaded onto the platform.
That's fantastic news. A lot of talk about recruitment and retention of officials. You're in the cauldron virtually every night.
Sure.
And that's one thing to do Division I. You're a high school ref. That could be a tough gig. And again, I know everybody's worried about trying to keep officials in the pipeline.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. RefQuest was Sandra Walters' solution for recruitment and retention. The officials in their 20s and 30s, though they're willing communicators, they absolutely want to have a technology platform. And they think this will keep them engaged, and we believe that too.
And Sandra Walter, for those who don't know, Assistant Commissioner of the ISSAA. Bo, again, you're in the cauldron, and you know what it's like out there, but your work at Division I and making the Final Four last spring, that had to be an incredible accomplishment for you personally.
It certainly was, and it's something that my wife and I both enjoyed. She's got to deal with me being gone a lot during the year, so we made sure and made a pact that if that call ever came, that we would go up and enjoy that moment, and we did.
And walking out on that floor had to be...
I can't describe it. It was incredible, but once that ball went up, it did just feel like another basketball game.
Yeah, we've got about a minute to go. Okay, more news for RefQuest.
Sure.
Beginning next spring, you're going to take this beyond basketball, so talk about that.
We are. We're going into 7 other sports for the 2020 competition season with a multitude of the people we have contracts with. Obviously, we're getting some help. I don't know a whole lot about soccer and lacrosse and volleyball, but we're going to get some people on board that can service those accounts. But the bottom line to it is content is available in those sports, and we want to offer our platform for those officials as well.
Well, that's an exciting development for RefQuest. And again, I'm so proud of you. We've known each other for a long time.
Yes, we have.
And to see you working these games, I'm just... I'm really happy for you.
Well, Bill, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Bo Borowski. Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, for weeks, we've been highlighting winners of Indianapolis-based tech networking platform PowderKeg's inaugural Indiana Breakout Tech Awards, Culture Awards. The final winner is Blast Media, honored with the top-rated service provider award. The Fishers-based agency says it is the only PR firm dedicated to software as a service and understanding how PR can play a role in scaling a SaaS business. Blast Media says relationships at the core of what it does, which includes relationships with each other, clients, friends, and family. Congratulations to Blast Media. Up next, our special AgriNovus Insiders panel is here to talk about the ag bioscience entrepreneurial movement in Indiana and also take a look back at successes this past year. They are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, this week we welcome a special group of insiders to offer perspective on the push to support more ag bioscience entrepreneurs and innovation in Indiana, and to also look back at some of the big successes of 2019. Joining me this week are Solymptech Chief Operating Officer Daniel Pedro, also Ag Alumni Seed President and CEO Jay Hulbert, and the President and CEO of AgriNovus, Beth Bechtold. And welcome one and all to the Insiders.
Great to be here.
For a special edition on a subject, Beth, that really is one that is gaining pretty incredible traction in Indiana, and that's in the ag bioscience space that AgriNovus is really all about. Put that in perspective for folks who may not know where things are and some of that momentum.
So I think one of the things that has really happened in the last probably year especially is that this almost redefinition of the sector itself is really taking hold. That people nationally are really getting what we mean by ag plus bio plus science, and this whole space of convergence in food and agriculture. Our events are continuing to draw record crowds. Our partnership with organizations like Forbes, the success that we're having in getting more ag bioscience entrepreneurs from Indiana recognized, not just here locally, but on a national stage. There's just been more of a consistent sort of set of those success points this year than I think we could have ever imagined.
You mentioned events. You recently had your AgriNovus Summit, which I know was a big event, certainly. But I think the Forbes Summit is reflective of that national interest in what's going on in Indiana. It really was a coup to, again, get that event here.
Yeah, so this is the second year that Forbes has brought their ag tech franchise, which has really resided on the West Coast in California for the last several years, to the Midwest. And they were very intentional, and we were very intentional in forging that relationship so that that first Midwest event could actually be in Indianapolis and be here around the Indiana ag bioscience community.
Daniel, Solimtech is a great example, I think, too, of what Indiana is beginning to attract. A precision ag company from Brazil, South America, putting their U.S. headquarters, announcing that about a year ago in West Lafayette, and now recently announcing, hey, you're going to put your global headquarters here. First of all, talk about the company. Give us a thumbnail description of Solimtech.
So Solimtech, it's a 12 years old company founded in Brazil. We grew a lot in sugarcane. We started working with sugarcane 4 years ago. We decided to start working with row crops in Brazil. So we had a good success in Brazil. We can say that Solimtech, it's probably the largest ag tech company in Brazil. And 3 years ago, we decided to start traveling back and forth to the U.S. to understand the needs of the farmers here and the ag-retailers. And when we were totally sure that we could add value for them, that we could change the way they are doing something, and the same thing that we're doing in Brazil, we decided to move. So last November, I moved to West Lafayette, and we brought some guys from Brazil and hired some people from Purdue. So it's coming, and we are pretty excited.
Give us briefly what makes Indiana attractive to Solimtech.
So that was our easiest decision ever. So it took 30 minutes, I think. It was, but I'm joking.
And some persuasion.
Yeah, I'm joking. But when you talk with Kipton from Tom Farms, then you talk with Beth, and you know everything that's happening with AgriNovus, and you talk with Johnny and team from Wing. Then you go to Purdue. So Purdue is Purdue. We don't have to talk about so much about Purdue. Right. And you talk with Karen, and you go to a cafe and grab a coffee and see everybody talking about how we're going to change, how we're going to disrupt agriculture, how we're going to change the way we are doing, we are farming. And so other places that we go, we see people talking about that, and we see hungry people. That's the place to be. That's the place that a company as Solimtech want to be.
Yeah. Jay, a lot of momentum around innovation and entrepreneurship. G-Beta, the Ag Bioscience Cohort, Thrive, Midwest Accelerator. Talk about some of those things that really are gaining momentum.
It's really been a great year, Gary, and really a lot of transition from research, where Indiana's always been a leader with Purdue and the Ag Biosciences, and an evolving system of great support for entrepreneurship. So those accelerators you just mentioned, the Foundry at Purdue, they've created a network where scientists can take a new technology, start a company, take it to market. Some great examples of that, like Griffin at Purdue, an aerial imaging company. Just got a $9 million grant from the Department of Energy to support further research in the direction of commercialization. Nutrimase, orange corn, corn with high carotenoids, tastes good too. Yeah. Evan Rochford, the CEO, just named one of Forbes 30 under 30 for food and drink. Just a ton of these things happening, and we're beginning to see them build on each other.
Yeah, momentum.
Momentum, exactly.
Yeah. Going forward, what are there, the missing links? What needs to be done or addressed, in your view, Beth, going forward?
Well, I think one of the things that we are working on now, and we all know, is really from an AgriNovus perspective, and our partners' next priority is this whole space of talent, continuing to build out really intentional programming for AgriNovus around talent. I think you and I have talked about that before, and it's especially focused on Gen Z talent, right? The next generation of data analysts and robotics engineers and other types of tech, especially tech-enabled leadership that the ag bioscience community is in desperate need of to support these new positions.
Well, I think we've got some video of the FFA, the Blue Room, because I think it's a great example. I think it was really an idea that kind of percolated out of you, Beth, and AgriNovus, but I think Microsoft and some big name players are involved in that, all about focusing on careers.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to show these young people, first of all, the innovation itself, because I think a lot of times they don't appreciate just the sophistication and the cool factor of the technology that's being used, even though they are FFA students, but then getting them to really think about the jobs of the future that are there for them.
Yep. Daniel, I'll give you the final word. What are you looking forward next, that next big thing for Solimtech here in Indiana?
So the idea is to develop solutions for farmers with WIN and with
So the Wabash Heartland Innovation Network and their precision agriculture, which is.
So what we're doing is to connect. We think there is an important opportunity to connecting agri-tailors with farmers. So we are working with that, developing solution with agri-tailor providers and companies, and working with WIN to develop a solution for farmers and connect both. I think there is a huge opportunity on that, and that is what we are working on.
Yep, and Jay, I guess we got about 15 seconds or so, but the potential would seem to be, not to overstate it, almost limitless for Indiana in this space.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got all the pieces, as Beth said. It's a great opportunity for kids who want to work in high tech and can also feed people.
Yep, very good. Jay Hulbert, President and CEO at Ag Alumni Seed. Beth Bechtel, the CEO at AgriNovus. Daniel Padrao, the COO at Solimtech.
Yes.
Thanks, one and all. I think I got your name pretty close.
Yeah,
right?
good.
Yeah. Thank you, one and all. Really appreciate it. Look forward to having you
Thank
back
you.
on.
Appreciate
and
it.
I'll be right back after this. Coming up next week, Elaine Beadle is moving to a new role from her current role as president of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation to secretary and CEO of the newly created Indiana Destination Development Corporation. She will share goals of the new agency next week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures, with support from WFYI Productions.